We're back for another podcast. This one probably less interesting to the general public, but this is for fun. Producer Lee is here. Lee and I started a podcast. We kind of got this all going several years ago. I don't know, 3 years ago. We tried to start something. Remember that?
Absolutely, yeah.
And like every other podcast that ever starts, it stopped. It was called Another Fantasy Baseball Podcast, right? It still have like there's still a Google account. You know how if you go to like your Gmail and it asks you to sign in, you have like every list of Google account that you've ever created there. It's like still sitting there, so nothing ever gets deleted. But we're here today to mainly celebrate Lee's Fantasy Baseball League Championship. Tell us a story. Tell us why it's significant, because we wouldn't be doing this for any ordinary thing. But you tell us the long and illustrious story of this championship going back.
Yes, yeah. So I was one of the original members of our Fantasy Baseball League. I think we started in 2006 or seven. Yeah, 2007. So it's been 18 years. There's probably like 4 or 5 of us that are still in the league that were actually like founding members of the league. Maybe something like that. 5 or 6, maybe.
Yeah, 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah, and in all that time, I've racked up. I'm probably like second overall in win percentage. Total wins. Yeah, you have the stats. I've had a prolific career in the Fantasy Baseball League. Made the playoffs a handful of times, made the finals a couple times, I think, and I've never won a championship. I think I had the all-time best season, win percentage wise. Second all time in wins, and yeah, it was like I just kept getting bounced from the playoffs early. I think it was 2018 or 2019 whenever Paul and I squared off in the finals. Our first matchup. I had one of the craziest teams I think that was ever drafted and played and lost. So yeah, a lot of heartbreak over the years for having such a good career.
Yeah, so here it is. The screen sharing is never the clearest thing in the world. But the early years, it was a different world, man. I mean, and I have to say that I talk a lot about the league on my stuff, but like the only reason, now MLB Data Warehouse is kind of turned into like a business. It's not just it's gone from just something I did for fun, but now it's like a legit part of the income for my family, which is all pretty like crazy. But it wouldn't exist without this league that we started as sophomores in high school in 2007. We graduated in 2009, so it would have been spring 2007. And actually there was a league before this. So I think our first year playing was 2006 because we did it on Yahoo. So we were 15 probably. And totally different world. None of us really knew about baseball analytics or whatever. We just kind of liked it. We kind of got into it. And then it became, how young men, I mean, even old men, it's not really restrictive to young, but just like anything you can compete and try to beat your friends with and make fun of them in, like that becomes way too serious. And that's what happened. But it was pretty dominant. It was very top heavy in the early years, as you can see. Like me and you were kind of winning everything early on, and you can see here you had one losing record in your first 8 seasons here. So you had the first year you went a 65% win percentage, just crazy. I don't know if that could. It really hasn't nothing like that's really happened recently. I know you dove into that, but it was weird. Like we had these weird categories that I look at those old leagues, and the one good thing ESPN does do is saved all of this for the years, and I've in the past 5 years or so I've put it all into Excel so we never lose it, and then we can do cooler stuff with it. But I mean it was I think it was like a 7x5 league. We had 7 hitting and 5 pitching categories.
Something like that. And it was like the pitching categories, we like home runs allowed and total strikeouts were 2 like those weird straggler categories.
Hitter strikeouts or something.
It was goofy.
Which I guess is fine. Yeah, hitter strikeouts is kind of an interesting one. That would change things. That kind of would reduce like the Aaron Judges of the world a little bit at least, because Judge would at least be. But anyway, not to get into that. But yeah, you look at those old days and the rosters were small, and it's like you just see all those great old names: Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, all these guys from those early years. But so yeah, Lee went through, and it was really just remarkable. We see all the playoff appearances here. So 4 teams make the playoffs. And it's 1 week. The other thing is that it's a 1 week playoff matchup head to head, so anything can happen. Point being that if you get to the playoffs 5 times, you pretty much will win a championship, right? Because pretty much everybody has a 25% chance. So the fact that you went to the playoffs 8 times here before actually winning the big one, and you went 0-2, 0-2 in the finals, just really remarkable. And then the big thing is that the same thing has happened in fantasy football. We've been doing fantasy football just as long, and you also hadn't won a championship there. I mean, Clint and I think I have not 7 or 8 combined championships, and Clint's right there at like 5 or 6 as well. And like everybody else who's played more than a few years has at least one. And then you were sitting at like 37 seasons with 0. So
yeah, and same thing in football league too. I had the best season we've ever had, and same thing with baseball, and couldn't get a championship out of either one of them.
Right. It's not like you've just been an idiot loser. You have winning records in both, like by far. So all really funny. And yeah, just shout out to the league and to the friendship. I mean, I do wonder. Not people really don't care about this, but maybe some people listening can kind of are in this boat too. I don't know where all our relationships would be with our friends if it weren't for these leagues. We've been out of high school for 16 years now. I mean, that was half our lives ago, basically, and we're all still like talking every day and stuff. And I don't know, maybe it would have been more or less the same without fantasy leagues, but it wouldn't have been the same. But
yeah, I mean, one of the big things about keeping together was we created a Slack channel for the baseball draft specifically back in 2018 or 19, something like that, which has all evolved to we have a baseball channel, a football channel, a channel for when we do camping trips, a channel for politics. Like we have like everything in there. So all day long, every day, we're all still staying connected. There's like 10 or 12 of us in there, so it's been pretty cool. All kind of stemmed from baseball.
Yeah, and then every man knows this. I don't know every man, but if you're probably the audience is pretty much guys like me, right? Like I think my audience is 99% men and all like 25 to 65. I offended somebody one time because I have a few readers that are like in their 70s or something, and they're like, "Oh, I guess I'm not your target demographic." They were kidding, but yeah. So the point being, like, you have a wife. I'm talking to you, male adult listeners. Like, think about your wife. Does she have any friends from high school? And like, probably not, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe one or two. And we're like sitting here doing the same stuff for 20 years now, since we all met. So fun stuff. But the point of this podcast is just to do this reminiscing and this this personal stories that we have, but also I want to somewhat consider the actual listeners that are looking for fantasy baseball information, which isn't many because it's September 25th and everybody's tuned out. But whatever, we're having fun. So we're going to look at Lee's team, and we'll try to draw some. You can tell us the story because you just went through the season. These names, you can tell. Who are the difference makers, and then we'll try to. I'll just try to be the one to kind of chime in with some like actual useful tidbits and whatnot.
Sure. And then also just shout out to you too. I think your advice you give everybody for the past handful of years is if you want to win a championship and you haven't won one yet, you have to have a kid. And
yeah,
I had you always said you have to have a child and you can win a championship. It's always that year that you have your first kid. So I had my first kid this year, well, in December, but first full year having a child. And look at that championship.
Right. It's remarkable. It is. I mean, it's we like sample sizes and stuff. It's a small sample size, but I had my first child December 2018. She's 6 now, kind of crazy. And from then, immediately upon that, I guess it was even before because. Anyway, after I had conceived my first child, I had gone 2018, 2019, 2021, we skipped 2020, 2, 3, 4, 7 straight, what is that, 18, 19, 21,
6,
2, 3, 4. 6 straight years of making the playoffs, which had never been done before. I won 2 championships in that mix. And I did. I like, because what having a kid does, at least in the early stages, like you, Lee, are a big world traveler, and you've still done some of that. You have a 9-month-old baby now. It's not like it kept you in the house by any means. You went on a couple trips, but it does force you into the house a little bit more. And then what do you do when you're in the house? Like, you pull up your fantasy team and you spend more time on it. Is that your experience too?
Oh yeah, I mean, every morning I work from home. Every morning, get online, check the email for work, reply to a few people, spend 20, 30 minutes looking at all the stats for the day, getting the line prepared, and then you're just home all day. So whenever the early games are on Wednesdays, Thursdays, you can monitor things. It's a lot of fun working from home and also just kind of being home with the kid too. It's like you can check on things a little bit more.
You don't. and you come to appreciate it more. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just because you know you're kind of restricted, and more of your life is kind of online and stuff. But to channel that into a fantasy team, it kind of that's just a natural consequence. And it's not, that sounds a little bit pathetic and weird, but like, no, I mean, I never was much of a one to travel and stuff. I didn't really care about doing things and having experiences. But when you have a kid, it's like next level. Like, okay, I don't have to see the Eiffel Tower or whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, I just want to stare at this kid and like watch this kid grow up, and everything kind of changes. I think you've experienced some of that. You're still more adventurous than me, but all right. So that's the advice. If you're struggling with fantasy baseball, if you're struggling to win a championship, get married first. I would say, get married first. Be committed to that woman, and then have a child with her. And for the primary reason, don't tell her this, but yeah, like, it'll help your fantasy baseball game. So let's look at the team. Of course, the main player that did it for you. How do I do this? Right here. Here's the team. It was Juan Soto, right? He was.
Of course, yeah, absolutely ridiculous season, and what was considered a down year for him. Even just mid-season, it seemed like he's probably going to go 40-40 if he can rip out 4 stolen bases in the next 4 days here. I mean, still ridiculous, almost 400 OBP, which is pretty in line with him, and batting average.
Yeah, that's not a bit. That's not super surprising. No. The OBP stuff. If we look at his last few years here, I mean, this is actually his low year for OBP, 399. I wonder if he's
stolen base column.
That's the key, right? And this is an interesting thing, because I was actually telling Andrea about this. I was talking. She doesn't like Juan Soto because of the Soto shuffle. She thinks he's a jerk and stuff. Sure. But I was just telling her, like, Juan Soto's he just stole his 30th base, and she pretends at least to care. And then the point is that stolen base. I don't know if there's another statistic in any sport that is just about the will. It's do you want to steal bases? Yes or no? And I mean, there's some physical thing, but we've seen Josh Naylor, right? One of the slowest players in the league. Soto has single-digit percentile sprint speed, I think. He's not fast, but it doesn't matter. It's more about the skill of it, I guess, the timing, the jumps. But mostly, it's you're not going to steal a base if you don't want to, and if you really want to, you will steal somehow, no matter how fast you are. So, and we saw it with Judge 3 years ago, 2021 or whatever, before he got the big contract. He stole 16 bases with the Yankees in that contract year, right? And everybody kind of explained that, like, okay, he wants to show that he can steal some bases and do this base running stuff to add more to the coming contract. This is the total opposite. Soto got the biggest contract in MLB history, and then he goes and steals 35 bases. It's strange.
That is crazy. And I think your numbers are a day off, too, because he has 36 now.
Okay. Well, yeah, sometimes I miss some stuff. These numbers aren't all exactly right. Sometimes things change and not retroactively. But anyway, yeah. So that is shocking. His attempt rate more than doubles. 8% was his career high, and now he's up to 19%. Just became a part. I don't know. Maybe it was the Mets. I don't. Maybe they said, hey, like, stealing bases is actually a little bit more. We value that a little bit more than the other teams you played for, and I don't know. But the thing is, you can't count on that happening next year, because it is just all about this will. And so I won the championship last year mostly because of this, Ohtani's 54-58 season. And you can see just how quickly that can go away. 19 steals for Ohtani. So things like this, with these star players that make their money in other ways or aren't even worried about making money, right? Like Chandler Simpson will steal a bunch of bases next year. That's what he does. But with Soto, Ohtani, these other guys that aren't really known for that, or at least they don't get their value like that, it can dry up just because for whatever reason. With Ohtani, you'd have to imagine that it was like, okay, I got to pitch now. I've kind of made my point. I did the 50-50 thing, and I don't really need to steal bases. It's not that helpful to the team, and I need to stay healthy. So that's that. All right. So, yes, Soto was the big one. Oh, and speaking of Josh Naylor, you grabbed 29 steals from him too. Although that was a midseason acquisition.
That was a midseason trade. I traded Corey Seager for Naylor and Luis Arias, who I shipped out Arias for somebody else. Which
that was like a 3. Yeah. Those trades fired off the same day, but it only shows here for. Oh yeah, there you go. You're right. You got it.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah. So Seager ended up having a pretty mediocre season. Hit the shelf eventually. He had like 2 or 3 weeks where he was just on fire, and then kind of cooled off, and then went to the IL. So it really worked out for me. I mean, I had to kind of sit through his bum season for a while. I drafted him in I think the 2nd or 3rd round of the draft, and so yeah, it was good to unload him. I think one of the keys to my season this year was making some trades and not being afraid to cycle through players. A lot of times I would just hold on to my core roster after I drafted for for a while, but I didn't mind cutting players and adding players and doing a lot more streaming pitching this year. So I think that's definitely a key to winning a season is just making a lot of moves, not getting too attached to your players. This was the first year I was kind of just like, screw it, like this guy's not playing well for like 2 weeks, like get him off the team, pick up somebody that's playing well, and kind of cycling those guys in and out.
And luck has a lot to do with it because you got 20 of these 29 steals. I think
yeah, that's a lot.
That trade happened on the 18th. On the 19th, that's kind of when he was just like, okay, I have something to prove. I don't know. A 20-29 season from Josh Naylor, and then a 40-40 almost from Soto, or 30-40, whatever. Is that?
It'll be 40-40. He has 43 home runs, so yeah, it'll be 40-40 if he can. I feel like he wants to get 40-40 because he just started stealing a crazy number of bases the last 3 weeks.
That was the Ohtani thing last year, too. It was like he didn't have that many steals on like August 1st, but then they started talking about 40-40, 50-50, and then it was like, okay, I'm doing this for this reason. So
yeah, and Soto gets on base enough where it's like if he gets on base 2 or 3 times every game for the next like 4 or 5 days, like I feel like he's just going to start running, but who knows what we'll do.
Yeah, I do wonder if he started to swing a little bit more. I'll have to look at that. We'll have to look at all that in the offseason. Soto probably a top. He probably goes number 3 next year. Ohtani, Judge, Soto, you'd think?
Yeah, and he's a keeper in our league for me, so I think I get him in the 6th round, which is still incredible value on that. A couple other guys there, like Michael Garcia, finally kind of put that together and had that nice season, batting 286, 352 OBP with 23 steals. I mean, I had him like 2 or 3 years ago, whenever he was a little bit more fresh in the league. I think Colin maybe had him last year or something, but this seemed like the first season he really put it together. Could be wrong, but
no, you're right. He had the flash of it at the beginning. I remember last April he was looking like he was going to do it, and then he didn't. But then this year, the 16 homers. That's about a neutral hit on the fantasy team, I think. But with the steals, with the batting average, expected batting average up to 288.
Especially from a guy, I think I drafted him like a 20th round or something. So it's like, he was I think he's like the 3rd ranked second baseman this year or something. 4th ranked third. Like he's like way up there in the rankings for like player rating. Yeah. Someone you get like towards the very back end of a draft. That's value.
Not quite the best. I don't think he's the best like points league guy. No, he's very good. Sure. But a Roto League, it's been really good. 16, 70, 70, 23. I mean, across the board. That's pretty much an elite batting average at this point, 288. The thing with him is that he's always hit the ball hard, and he's been one of those guys that fools guys like me because it's like, this guy's always hitting the ball hard. Hard hit rates are great. Eventually, he'll hit the ball in the air, and then he'll hit a bunch of home runs, and then it just doesn't work like that. And that's something I've learned over the years. Like, some guys can hit the ball hard on the ground, but it's a consequence of the type of swing they have, and just because they start lifting it doesn't mean that the hard hit rate will stay the same. But you can see a career low 45% ground ball rate for Michael Garcia. Fly ball rate has stayed pretty much the same as last year, but more line drives, fewer of these. It looks like a little bit more pop-ups, but this was always the key for him. Just stop hitting so many ground balls. He hit a few homers to go with the steals and the potential batting average, and then the strikeout rate, I think, has always been pretty good. 16.5. It's always been good, but this year a whole new level, 12% down there. So we'll definitely be looking at some of those guys that made those improvements. And Garcia, you'd think, I don't know, 4th or 5th round pick next year probably. It doesn't sound super interesting to me to chase the best season, the career high season, but he's only 25, so still got some potential room for growth as well.
Yeah, a couple other guys maybe just thinking about, like, I took a chance on Rooker pretty early in the draft, and he was just DH only, but he got that outfield eligibility pretty early in the season, so I was able to get him out of the utility spot. I mean, he hit 30 dingers and
quietly
batting average. Yeah, very quietly.
Much about him. Yeah.
No, I really haven't. Who else? Like Isaac Collins, he was another kind of weird one. I mean, he's really trailed off the past like 3 or 4 weeks, but he had that flash for
crazy
a while.
July, August. Yeah, July.
Yeah, for him. Yeah, just insane. He was hitting some home runs. I mean, not a lot, but 9's not a lot, but for him, that's a lot. 16
he was in the Rookie of the Year discussion for a little bit. So he's had a nice season.
Yeah. Yeah, he pretty much read my bench for the past like month, but it was just a good guy
this guy
for a while.
Were you the one with Colson?
Yeah, I think
Did you pick him up right away?
Clinton had him for a little bit there. Looks like for just a day, and then I picked him up and kept him, and I held him through almost all those home runs. I think I had him on my team for
29th.
54 hits and 19 home runs. It's a pretty wild stat.
Clint's gonna be kicking himself for that one. I guess he's probably.
I mean, the guy was miserable. 298 OBP. Other than that, I mean, it's like almost like almost half of his hits were home runs.
It looks like he's slowed down quite a bit now too.
Yeah, he did.
That's not surprising.
but
Yeah,
I was
it
able
never
to
really made a ton
grab
of
him.
sense. You're right. Like it was strikeout or home run, and then pitchers are going to exploit that. But 19 homers, and I mean, this is a 45 homer pace or something like that. 265. A
Yeah.
normal season is like 650 play. That's like a full season,
Mhm.
650 plate appearances. So that's kind of how I do the pacing on. So you would multiply this by 2.5 or something like that. I mean, you're at probably a 50 homer pace. Totally unsustainable with the way he swings, with the way that with the strikeout rate and stuff. And it could be a pretty rough year for him last year. But I guess that's a reason. So when he was called up, I remember I tweeted. I was like, you know, I didn't understand why they were calling him up. I was like, oh, I guess he's a really good fielder because his minor league numbers were horrible. I mean, he hit. I think this is. All right, so we'll go to MILB there. Is that adjusting right? Make sure my tools work how I think. Yeah. So he was hitting 218, slugging 435, which is okay. 34% K rate in AAA. Okay. 34% K rate in AAA. That will almost always turn into like a 45% K rate in the majors, and then you'll be benched within like 2 weeks. But he dropped at 5 points, started slugging a ton better. Everything got better in the major leagues. Makes no sense, but some things don't make sense, and sometimes you just take the flyer on the prospects
Yeah.
because I don't imagine you dropped anybody like all that good for him. So
Mhm. Yeah, and there's other interesting guys that we could talk about on the roster that are just like givens. I mean, I got Freddie Freeman, Gunnar Henderson in a trade. Not really much to say there, but like if you think about like key moves, like Jerkson Profar suspended most of the season.
yeah,
I picked him up right before he was eligible to play, and he's been really good since he came back. 307 at bats, 14 dingers, almost double digit stolen bases, 360 OBP. He was one of those guys that kind of just was like an awesome midseason ad.
yeah, that's a 30-20 pace there.
Yeah, that was good. Like Matt Chapman, he hit the shelf twice this year, so he's probably about 100, 120 less at bats than normal, but still hit 21 home runs. I mean, the batting average was horrible, but OBP was there. The counting stats were still there for someone that missed probably collectively a month or a month and a half of baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, Kerry Carpenter assists against lefties most of the time, but against righties, I mean, he hit 26 home runs, a lot of pinch hit home runs in there this year.
Very it seemed like super streaky too. There were times
Oh,
it
yeah.
was worthless. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I don't know, just got to ride that.
That's surprising. I would have guessed he was only at 19 or 20 homers. Honestly,
No, I mean, I was hoping. I've had him the past 2 or 3 seasons at least on my team, and I was kind of always hoping for 30, 35 home runs. So he got decently close to that this season. If he played probably a little bit more against lefties, I'm sure he would have had a
in
few
our
more
league,
home runs.
we change our lineup every day, so he's a big boost in that.
For
'cause
sure.
You could just sit him when you had. The one thing about Profar, it's the other like the topic of okay. I didn't want anything to do with Profar because it's just like this narrative story, right? Where Profar goes his whole career. I mean, I remember he was the top prospect in baseball when like around in the early years of our league, right? Like he was a big deal 10 years ago, at least. And then he just had this like mediocre career. I mean, good enough to keep a major league contract. But then he has the breakout year at age, let's see.
Yeah, how old was he? 30? 31? I'm just guessing here, but it seems like
32.
32.
So he turned. So in age 31 season, he has this huge breakout, and then he gets suspended for PEDs, and you're like, okay, well now that makes sense. And then he comes back, and you're like, okay, well he's probably not going to be on the PEDs anymore. But then he just like keeps it going. So that is the other thing you can get kind of dumb takes about steroids, just because we all remember 1997 or whatever, and it was like those steroids were clearly just like. I'm not a scientist or whatever, anabolic, I don't know what that means. But it was like those guys were just getting jacked. But that's not the typical use of performance-enhancing drugs, I don't think, in sports. It's more for recovery, more for, I don't know. But it's not just about, like, I'm going to take this Bugs Bunny secret stuff and, like, turn it into a Monstar, right? So, I don't know. I mean, Profar will probably be a pretty high-up pick next year because now you look at the last 2 seasons, 1,000 plate appearances, 828 OPS, 3820. Pretty good. I mean, he'll be 33. I don't think he'll be expensive at all. But yeah, just another guy. I think you probably ended up adding him and stashing him.
Same.
Or no,
same
he wasn't stashable, but you picked him up when the suspension was about to end, right?
Yeah, I had him on the IL because we have an IL spot for. Or no, he was actually eating up a suspended spot. Yeah, so. I think I had him.
You had him June 16th, so
16th?
about when his suspension was about to end. Yeah, so.
Yeah, Albies was another one who just, most of that Braves roster had a miserable season, and Albies was just doing so bad this year. And I saw some trends looking good on him late in the season, picked him up. He went on a crazy tear, I think, for the last month.
Shout out to
He was
me. I think
definitely
some of my
yes,
reports he was showing up in
yes, that's where I got
late
them
in the
from.
year. He turned it off right there when you need it in those last few.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and that's I rode that to the
yeah.
playoffs.
The head-to-head league is always determined by just whatever team is hottest in late August and early
Mhm.
September, whoever's come together. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it makes it
the
interesting.
the pitching on my team was a revolving door bit. I mean, I had Scooball Woo and Hunter Brown, which are three of the top 5 pitchers in the league for our categories. So that definitely helps. Ryan Nelson had a quietly pretty decent season. He was under one whip. He was under one whip for a while. He was like at 0.98 for almost the whole season until August. The rest of those guys I kind of just pick up. We stream and drop so many pitchers through our league. But yeah, I mean, I drafted Glass now, who got hurt immediately, and just had him ride the bench for a while. Reese Olson was having a really good season, and he got hurt, so he was just sitting on the IL for a long time. So I definitely was hurting for pitching for a while, but I made a trade and had some good guys on the team. Not at all what the beginning roster looked like, because I picked up guys for the playoffs. But yeah,
but it's amazing what 195 innings of a 2.2 ERA and a .89 WHIP and 11.1 K per nine does for you. I think it's in a categories league. It seems to me, I guess we could bear this out statistically, but just like the impact that one pitcher can have on your pitching category seems to be a lot greater than the impact that one hitter can have. I guess in the exceptions of like these insane, like Acuna's whatever 40-70 season, Otani's 50-50, Soto's 40-40 with the 400 OBP. Like, I guess those are pretty comparable, but you pretty much knew that if Scooball, Skeens, these guys, Wheeler, if they were going to stay healthy, they would have a huge positive impact on your team. But it was still, I don't know, you took him in the first round because we have 2 keeper rounds. So you ended up using a first pick, and like, I don't like to do that because you subject yourself to like, this high risk of what if my first round pick, the elbow goes down, and especially with these guys that are through a bunch of innings last year and throw really hard and all this talk about velo and stuff. But I guess the risk reward is pretty much balanced, and it worked out for you there. Brian Wu, of course, he was probably one of the more valuable. I was surprised to see his strikeout total this year. He's almost at 200.
Dude, look at his last like 6 or 7 games. I think he had 13 strikeout game. I mean, his numbers are just crazy up, and which was just perfect right in time for the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I guess this is the podcast to do it on, right? I'm the champion. If you pull up the team again one more time, go to my schedule.
Okay.
If you just look at the last like post All-Star break, I went on an insane run head to head, and that's what got me into the playoffs. I just it's like I almost couldn't lose. I think I lost once since the All-Star break.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So from July 21st on, you went 3, 6, 8, and 1.
I went from like 8th place up to 2nd. I finished 2nd overall.
Yeah, we have that. This one, I have this Google sheet, right? The standings, running standings. Here you are. I made a plot of it. But yeah, so you were in 7th place after week 20, and then you were. I mean, this is wild, really. This is what place everybody was in after each week. I mean, you got to 4th here, but then you settled into 6th, 7th. Here, and then all of a sudden in 1 week you jumped up 4 spots, avoided playing Paul in the first round. Paul clearly had the best team. As you can see here, he was the one that was in first place pretty much all year after things settled down. You avoided him in the first round. You had to get to him in the finals, but you ended up knocking him off. So yeah, that's pretty crazy to jump four standings places in 1 week, and this was right before this was the last week of the regular season.
Last week, too. Yeah, I mean that's how our league is. Like always, pretty much the first 2 playoff spots are usually pretty locked in our league, and then the fight for like 3 through 6 is always within like 5 to 10 games. But this year, I think was probably one of the closest years we had, where literally going into the final week, there were 5 or 6 teams that could have placed anywhere from like 2nd to 8th place. It was just like a crazy jump. I mean, you were in there for a while sniffing it too, and then I pretty much buried your season.
It got a little bit interesting there in like mid-August for me. I pulled these standings up without like thinking through if there's any like offensive team names here, but I think we're okay.
Yeah, we're all right.
So there it was. So you were well behind Paul. I mean, Paul just kind of absolutely dominated us. in the regular season, but then anything can happen in the playoffs. And it is this question of like, do you for fantasy baseball leagues, if you're setting one up, do you do the most fair way or the most fun way? Because you can certainly argue that you were probably the fourth best team all year if you look at the whole thing, and then you win the championship, and it often happens like that. But yeah, for Paul to go into like, he would have run, if it was a roto league, he would have run away with it. He clearly had the best team, but then he loses the championship.
Yeah, but you think about it,
boring,
it's almost it's like real life sports, right? It's the same
Yeah.
deal. Like we don't judge the champion in every sports by like who like had the best season. It's like who can put it all together at the right time. That's how baseball is in real life. So
Yeah.
it was just one of those deals. I snuck into the playoffs there at the end, and then I just did what I needed to do. And honestly, it would have been a lot more heartbreaking for me if I would have lost in the first round of the playoffs instead of the championship, which is kind of like seems counterintuitive because I don't know. I've lost in the champion. The only championship that really hurt me losing was the 2018 one against Paul, just because my team was ridiculous that year, and I drafted almost that whole entire team and didn't really make too many moves. But I think if I would have never even known what could have been, it would have been worse for me losing in that first round.
Yeah. I always. Yeah, I don't. My goal is always just to get to the playoffs, and then you get those two. You get at least 1 week of that. Like, although it's fun, but it's I don't. It's just like I don't know if you experience this, but whenever I've been in the playoffs, it's like during the weekend, you're kind of okay. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. You're not gonna like, but then Saturday and Sunday, you're just like every play. You like can't get off your phone. You're like, okay, who's up to bat? Where are they at? Like you're just like tense all day, and you just start ignoring.
That's how the first. Yeah. That's how the first week of the playoffs went for me, and then I made the finals. And then the first, I was actually kind of eerily calm because I was just like, whatever was going to happen was going to happen at this point. I made like 3 or 4 moves like early in the week, so I wasn't going to make a ton more ads for the rest of the week. So I kind of knew my roster was pretty much like locked in. I didn't have to do too much tinkering.
Yeah.
And then actually Saturday, which is arguably probably like one of the biggest days, like championship Saturday weekend, I was up on like a camping trip, and I didn't even have service for almost the entire day. So I was just like, hey, whatever happens. I came home, and it was looking pretty good for me, but I didn't have a great day, but it was looking pretty good. And then Sunday, just Paul's team fell flat, and I was able to just coast to the championship.
Yeah, our league settings make it about as like butt puckering as possible. Because
everything's close.
You can change it's head to head 1 week where anything can happen, but then we also do this daily roster changes. Mm-hmm. So you can add guys Sunday morning. It's always a thing in the playoffs. Somebody is like saving one ad just to add the Sunday night pitcher just in case. So you can't even just like set it and then let it go and let what happens. Which I guess works. It's worked to my benefit. I think that's why I have, as you can see, the nice ticker I set up, my league leading 6 championships. Can't talk about just you in this, but there's obviously a ton of luck in winning 6 championships. As pretty much every variance has gone my way. But point being that like the more granular you make your league settings and the more stuff you put into it, the better that gives the better players more opportunity to rise to the top, right? Because if you do a draft and hold leagues, just take the other extreme. I do some of these NFBC drafts where you draft a team, you draft 25 players, and it's over. You just see who those, how those stats turn out. That pretty much makes it random. I mean, some people are better at drafting than others, but in our league, it's like every day you got to be in there, and whoever's the most dedicated and the most, you could even say most pathetic, like who's spending most of their actual life on this, like that gives it a pretty big advantage. So
yeah, I mean, for our league, I don't know how many, probably the numbers, how many regular season championships I've won. But yeah, I think I honestly like a regular season record championship #1, aside from the playoffs and the actual champion, I feel like is just as impressive because for our league, that's 100 and how many games, like 150 something games. That's almost 7 months worth of baseball where the top couple guys are like every single day you're spending anywhere from like a half an hour to probably 2 hours, and you're tinkering like every single day. It's a grind. Right. So I take a lot of pride in finishing in the top 1 or 2 spots, regardless of the playoff outcome. But yeah, it's a tough league, especially these days where with the analytics and everything's more readily available. There's a lot of people putting out articles and stats like you do. I mean, everybody has access to this kind of information, so it's a lot more competitive now, and it's hard to win.
Yeah, there's no like real draft values anymore. It's like everybody knows.
Yeah, there's no secrets.
Like I remember in the early days, like I would just draft based on, I would look at Sierra and XFIP, and other guys weren't even aware of that. So it's like, and some people were even guys. I mean, we're talking really early, 2010. at the end of that where like the win-loss record would make people think that a guy is better or worse, and you would like that would factor into the draft ADP and stuff. And there's still some edges and stuff like that, but yeah, I have the big advantage of now I'm obligated to do these daily notes every morning and to run all these reports and do these projections. I'm obligated to it, so I know it, and then for you guys, you kind of have to put your normal work and normal responsibilities aside to do that. Meanwhile, it's me. It's like I'm kind of forced to do it every morning, but it's fun. So anyway, now we can't make the joke, and I don't know what did you learn any lessons about how to win this league, or do you think it was all just finally the randomness going your way?
I mean, there's definitely some randomness in there, but I feel like I actively made some pickups whenever I noticed trends happening. I didn't get too attached to players, made a couple trades that really helped me out. I think it was more or less just like more roster tinkering than usual to get me over the finish line. And obviously, I mean, you get lucky if I made 6 ads that were incredible throughout the season, like 4 or 5 of those were luck, for them to keep playing that well. But I don't know. I think for me, like, just truly just did a really good job of managing the roster this year. And I had a ton of injuries. I had so many injuries, so I had to work around that. Everybody always does a bit. Someone like Tristan Cassis, I was banking on him having a really good season. Everyone was real high on him. He got hurt so early. Like, I had to replace a lot of guys last time, hit the shelf early as always. There was just a lot that happened, and I was able to kind of overcome that.
One more thing, we didn't mention Pete Crow Armstrong. You handled that perfectly. That was him and Soto were probably the main reasons, and for different reasons. So talk to us.
Yeah, I drafted PCA.
Here I
don't even know when it was, 13th, 14th round or something. Yeah,
here's your draft. 100 picked 124 round. It would be round 11 because
11 for us with the keepers. Yeah, so I drafted him round 11. I liked him a lot. He was like one of the guys I had to get.
I did. Where'd you get that idea?
I don't know. I read a few things. There was a couple Twitter threads about like super duper sleeper guys that we were looking at. It wasn't like it wasn't like an underlying stats kind of thing for me. It was just like more or less, he's like one of those guys that just like has it, right? The intangibles. There were some interesting, I could probably find them if I've saved them, I'm sure, from back in February, March. But I saw a couple things I really liked, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's take a shot on this guy. And he was insane. And I traded him, I think when was that? Late June. I think I traded him.
You traded him June 23rd, and
right. I think he hit maybe 3 home runs since then, and sold maybe like 4 or 5 bases since then. Hasn't been much.
That seems like almost exactly when everything pivoted for him. Let's pull up this.
Yeah, one of the benefits of having a keeper league is some guys that are pretty much out of the playoffs, they want to get a different keeper or a better keeper for next year, so they're willing to give up a lot to get that. So. Shout out Mitch. He was like, "Oh, I want PCA for next year. This dude's amazing." So I was able to get Gunnar Henderson, Freddie Freeman. I can't remember who else I got. It was like Lawrence Butler. There's the trade. Which surprisingly, looking at the names, you think it was like a way lopsided trade. But I looked at the stats as of like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it wasn't a good trade for me. Stats wise, like Mitch got a lot more out of that because Altuve finally turned it on. Bellinger had a really good season. Yuri had that crazy run for like 4 or 5 or 5 or 6 or 7 starts, and Glasnow came back and was really good. So it actually kind of hurt me a little bit. I don't think that was like a huge factor. I think the biggest thing I even got out of that trade was just Gunnar Henderson stealing 3 bases for me in the championship week. That was pretty cool. But yeah, PCA, man, just talk about falling off a cliff.
866 OPS. 21 homers, 23 steals before your trade. After OPS went down to 643, 8 homers, 12 steals the rest of the way.
Yeah.
The sell high, I did think he was, pretty much anytime you have this out of nowhere elite player, it's a decent idea to just sell high. I mean, I said that about Raleigh at the All-Star break, which I guess ends up looking pretty stupid because he kind of went on to hit just as many home runs. He almost didn't. I think he slowed down a little bit, but anyway, it's a little bit harder in keeper leagues because PCA was looking like he was looking like a top 5 pick or something around that time you traded him. But now I wonder. I don't think he falls too far, probably 3rd round or something next year. But that was a big key for you. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was definitely a big move for sure. I didn't get attached. I just got rid of him, and it was the right time.
Yeah. And then Garcia in the 15th round.
Yeah, Kerry Carpenter late. Oh, man, Logan O'Hoppe, he had a hot start. He had 15 or 16 home runs real early, and then just it's horrible. I had high hopes for him this year, but yeah, I mean, look at Tyler Estrada was on the shelf for a while. Nestor Cortez was on the shelf for most of the season.
And he whiffed on Casas.
Yeah, Glasnow was hurt. Gallon had a bad season. Yeah, I mean, if you look at my draft, I mean, Springs like wasn't great. Look at my draft. The first like half of my draft was not that good. But yeah,
was a whiff. Altuve was a whiff.
I just had to put it all together, man. I made a lot of moves there and figured it out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I knew that it's not really about the draft in our league. It's just like who can manage their team better and who can get those outlier seasons. So that's what I did. I mean, I had a horrible draft. This is for the worst work I've ever done, but I was just trying to buy these potential lottery tickets, McLean, Sasaki, Robert. I mean, I was screwed from the beginning, honestly. There's nothing I could do to come back from this. But that was my thought. Like, I know that I'll end up dropping half this team or trading them, but let me try to just hit 1 or 2 lottery tickets, and none of the tickets I bought paid off. So bad season for me. But congrats to producer Lee. This ended up being decent content, I think. We talked a lot about useful things next year and whatever. So cool. That's it. We'll see you next time.
Real quick. Good guy John here sent me some chocolate covered strawberries as a present for winning. So I just want to shout John out.
That was a little bit. I don't know if I would choose chocolate covered strawberries again, because some of the guys did make the point that is like, it's a little bit of a lighten the loafers thing to do, for lack of, chocolate covered strawberries.
You didn't have to do anything.
It has a certain innuendo. Maybe I should have sent you whiskey or something. Although you can't ship whiskey, so I went with strawberries.
You can actually. Not supposed to, but you can. But either way, I was just happy to get something. I wish I would have had the belt for the podcast. Hold up, we have a championship belt. It has not been delivered to me.
It was right there on that table for 11 months or 10 months or whatever, and then I brought it back. So you'll get that eventually. But that was good time, and we'll certainly the home league content is not going to stop, because again, that league is the reason that everything I do exists. So thanks for coming on, Lee, and we'll talk to everybody next time. Peace out.